Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to our podcast, Two Brothers, One World. Naveed and Saurabh here. We are on our fifth episode, and I was thinking um, about the world that we live in, and a lot of people have emailed in asking about money and finances, and what's the best investment to do, and there's a lot of talk out there about what to do with money. And I thought, this episode we can talk about finances, and Saurabh, I know you sort of worked in the field of finance as well yourself at some point, and you've gone through various stages of life, different jobs, and different experiences. So I thought I would ask you, like, what do you feel are the top sort of mistakes that people make when it comes to planning? Not even planning, just when it comes to finances, whether it's spending money, whether it's trying to save money. What do you feel are the common mistakes people make?
Yeah, that's a really good question, I think. And because I've personally experienced it, I can tell you, I can share some of my experiences. For many, many years, maybe more than 20 years, we lived paycheck to paycheck. And living paycheck to paycheck ain't an easy thing to do. And I know many people are in that situation. So I know what it is like to stand. If I was to go back, I would do things very, very differently. But one of the biggest mistakes people make, including me, is when you're starting up, you spend beyond your means. And what does that mean? What do I mean by beyond your means? A lot of people confuse spending beyond your means with what they're doing. Somebody might say something like, you know what? We've never been on a vacation for 5 years, so we really deserve it. Just because you deserve it, it doesn't mean that you can afford it. And so, what I mean by living beyond your means is if you spend, it's very simple. If you spend more money than you earn, you're living beyond your means. Now, you could be a millionaire and living beyond your means, and you could be a very, below poverty line and still be living beyond your means. The biggest mistake most people make, especially early on in life, is spending beyond your means. So I think if I was to go back, I would say that I would be a lot more careful about spending beyond what I earn. Now, there are times that you have to do that. One of the things in my head is when it comes to your health and to your welfare, your kids' health. There is no thinking of if you have to spend beyond your means, you have to spend beyond your means. That you have to do. But even for some other stuff that you, going back to the example of vacation, if you haven't been on a vacation for 5 years, you've got three kids who've never been on a vacation, you may say, you know what, I really need to do this. That's fine, but you need to plan it. And by planning, I mean, is you say, I'm going to spend beyond my means now, but here's my plan to recover after that. Because if we don't recover, this thing is going to compound over and over and over again. So I think that's from a spending perspective, I'd say that would be one piece of advice. The other piece of advice, which is something everybody will give, is that you always have to have some savings. Now, people who are living paycheck to paycheck may think and may ask, what do you mean have savings? How can I have savings if I'm living paycheck to paycheck and not having enough money? The way I would respond to that is think about a situation where you have an emergency, and now that emergency, you don't have any money. Just imagine what situation you're going to be in. Think about that, and then think about that situation, and think about what can I cut now that for the benefit of the future, just in case there's an emergency. The conventional thought is that you need to have at least 6 months of your salary and savings to be able to live through emergencies. I say this, but I can tell you we never had an emergency fund. For more than 20 years, I never had an emergency fund because, as I said, living paycheck to paycheck, and then living with what you have, and also spending beyond our means. We always spend beyond our means. I'm not saying we lived in a lap of luxury. There are many, many hard times that we had, but even in those hard times, we were spending beyond our means. And that's something that I would advise any young person. That's the one mistake. If you can avoid it, you should avoid it, spending beyond your means.
Very good. I like that. Do you feel, just listening to you, I feel like in the environment, in the world that we live in right now, with banks wanting to profit as much as they can off people, do you feel like part of people like living beyond their means is helped and aided by banks?
No question about it. It is absolutely exact. That's a spot on. Because how banks make money? Banks make money by interest, right? In fact, I would argue some banks actually like giving money to people who are having struggling because if you're struggling, you don't have any money, you pay much higher interest. And the bank charge, a credit card charges like 22, 23%, some 25% interest. You will never ever recover. If you live on a credit card, you will I can tell you if your salary doesn't change, if your circumstances don't change, your income doesn't change, you will never ever recover from a credit debt, and it will just compound itself. Speaking of compounding, the reverse of that is that if you invest money and if you save money, that compounding is going to be your friend. It's going to be your best friend. In overspending, compounding is the worst. Borrowing, compounding is your worst enemy. But in saving, compounding is your best friend. One of the examples that just blows my mind. I worked for a company where they had a matching contribution. So if you had your
Oh
investment
yeah.
in your retirement, here in the US we call it 401k, and I think
Hmm.
Canada it's called RRSP. Said if you invested $1, the company will match that dollar up to 4% of your salary. So if you
Wow.
made 20,000, I'm just making a low number, 20,000 a year in salary, you can contribute up to 4% of that 20,000, which will be what, $800. They will match it. So if you put in $800, the company will put in $800. Now, this is an example of 20,000, but if you're making $100,000, that number is, $4,000.
Yeah.
So, and I remember talking to people. To me, it's a no-brainer. That's kind of free money. You give me 800, and I'll give you an 800 on top of that. I mean, there is a no-brainer. It's 100% return. And I
Right.
always, doesn't matter what I did, doesn't matter where we had money for not, I always put that money in that because it's free money. But I talked to people who said, I can't afford it. And my question was, how can you not afford it? This is free money. The company is giving you free money. And if you work for a company for 20 years and they keep giving you 4% of your salary, free money, and that money goes in the market and it continues to grow, that's how you're going to get out of living paycheck to paycheck. That's how
Right.
we ended up getting out of that situation of living paycheck to paycheck by getting help, this kind of help. So I think you just have to make smart decisions in life when it to finances and talk to somebody who's been through what you're going through. I wish there was somebody who could advise me at the time, but there wasn't. And I made many mistakes. So I love it to be able to share some of those mistakes with other people so they don't make the mistake. But going back to your original question, is it perpetuated, this debt problem that we have in our society? Is it perpetuated by banks? Absolutely, it is.
Yeah, I watch a lot of videos that you watch with financial experts. But here's the thing, some of them, a lot of them are like, don't get a credit card, don't get a loan, work off the money you have. If you don't have the credit card and you don't have the loan, you only have the money that you have in your hand, you won't go beyond your means. Then there's other financial experts that say, actually, have a credit card, use your credit card to accumulate points, reward points, or whatever it may be, but ensure that every month you clear that credit card. So, what I don't like about, I rather listen to the first advice with don't have any credit cards because technically credit card is debt. It's
Of
basically
course.
what it is. So if you are disciplined enough to have a credit card and use it and pay it off consistently every month so that you're not paying interest, fantastic. But and that's great. But if not, then yeah, I feel like if you don't have any credit card, there's no temptation. Oh, you go to a store. Oh, I want to buy this, but I don't actually have the money. Oh, I'll put it on my credit card and I'll pay it off. But then that can just become a snowball effect. Then you see something else you like. oh, I'll put it on my credit card, and it just goes on and on and on. So, but yeah, there's a lot of I know there's a lot of financial
You
experts
will be
that say
surprised
don't.
to know that I happen to agree with the second group because I was one of the people who had no discipline at one point, and I put money in credit card. I would go get another credit card and pay off the first credit card and then pay the other. So I know I've been there, but uh, today I do have credit cards. I take full advantage of the points. As soon as there is an opportunity to spend the money on your credit card and get some points, I'm right there. But exactly what you said, I make sure that I have the money to pay it off, right? It's very, very important. Now, I know it's not always easy when you're starting, but as long as you have the discipline, in other words, if you take your money, put the money on your credit card for $1,000, you absolutely put that credit card somewhere and don't touch it again until that $1,000 paid. Even if you can't pay it immediately, pay that off. Enjoy the fact that I paid it off. Then you could use it for something else. Give yourself incentive by saying, I will only spend another 1,000 on this credit card once I paid off this first 1,000. And stick to it. It is, you're right. It is so tempting. Oh, this is so cheap. This used to be 50% off. Doesn't matter. Because if you get yourself to that snowball, you're never going to get out of it. You're exactly right.
In business they always say the whys. You've got to ask why 5 times in
Yes.
business for a task you're doing, a project you're doing, or whatever. So I just thought about this. I wonder if we should like introduce that to when you want to buy something. You should ask yourself like 3 whys or five
Yes.
whys. Like why do I need this? What am I going to use it for? To try and help you make the correct decision as to whether you because you just and I think online hasn't helped. Online shopping has become such a big thing now because you can literally sit at the
So
comfort of
easy.
your yeah, it's just too easy. And the the apps already have your bank information on there, and literally you can order something off any of the big websites. You can order something within like 2 minutes. You can
Yeah.
order it. So it is very, very. It's definitely. I know that I definitely have lived beyond my needs, beyond my necessities all the time. All the time, you see stuff. You see something that somebody else has. Oh, you think, oh, that's great. I should have that. It's not easy. We talk about, you mentioned, oh yeah, be disciplined, don't live beyond your means, but it's so hard. It is so hard in this day and age to do that. But
Well, going
you
back to
you've
what you
got to
say,
try and think of the reward.
exactly. What you're saying about why, I would say that why, the three whys should be followed by a how. How am I going to pay this, right? If I do this, if I
Yeah,
make this purchase now, what am I going to cut back on so that I can pay this really quickly? And
yeah,
here's the other thing. Let me bring this vision to you. You have a mortgage, right?
yeah,
So mortgage is the most expensive, the biggest expense that most families have is a mortgage. The minute that you're mortgage free, your life completely changes. Just imagine that big expense, the monthly expense suddenly goes away. So if you
yeah,
make, everybody needs some kind of motivation. If you make that payment of the mortgage a motivation, that's one of the things that we did. It was very important for us to get out of get out of a mortgage, and so be focused on it. We got to do this. We got to do this. And I'm telling you, the day that whatever the number is, whether it's 1,800, 2,000, whatever that number is that comes out of your account is no longer coming out of your account. All of a sudden, you've got this amazing opportunity to maybe pay some of your other debts, or then actually spend it and do whatever you want to do. So I would say discipline is absolutely number one thing that you got to follow.
What I just thought of something. You said mortgage. So, in Europe, it's very common that people don't have mortgages. A lot of people in Europe are firm believers that I'm not going to buy a house. They believe that buying a house is a bad investment because it drains so much of your money. So they rent. And I just wanted to see what your take was on that. And I hear a lot of advisors from all over the world saying, yeah, you're better off renting and investing money in some in a stock market or something to get a return.
That may be true for people who actually have the cash. So they would say instead of you spending $500,000 on a home, invest that 500,000. That may be
Right.
true because as long as the interest rate is more than what you're getting paying for rent, that's true. But it's not true for most people who are starting up because if you're starting up, you don't have cash to go buy money. You
Yeah.
are going to gradually own this money. And for those people, instead of throwing money away as rent, because your rent money doesn't go anywhere. But if you bought a piece of property and instead of paying rent, you paid mortgage towards that house, you not only you end up owning that house, but also the value of that house is going to go up. So over
Yeah.
20
Yeah.
years, your mortgage of 15 years, your house is going to increase in value probably 20%, 25%. And that's already money in your pocket. Now, at that point, you may decide, you know what? I'm going to sell this house. I'm going to make interest on the money that put in the bank, I don't know, $2,000 a month, and my rent is only going to be 1,500. I'm going to be better off. But those are the decisions you can make at that time. But
Mhm.
for somebody starting up, absolutely, rent is throwing money away.
I want to end with one more question because you've had mortgages longer than I have had. So I know a lot of people once they build up equity in their house, they'll take money for renovations or if you're or they might take money out to buy themselves a new car or whatever. Now, personally, I'm not a big fan of taking equity from your house. To me, I would be like, oh, emergencies come up, you have to do some, plumbing work or some damages need repairing. I'd rather get a line of credit to pay that off or put it on a credit card and try and pay it off as fast as possible rather than take equity from a house. What's your take on removing equity from a house?
Yeah, to me, that's a red flag number. I mean, that's the red line that I will not cross. We never ever took money out of our house, even
Mm.
though we had equity in the house. It's very simple because once you take that money out, it is not going to go back. It is you're going to spend it, and now you've diluted the value of yours. The whole purpose of owning your house and not renting is so that you can keep adding value to your home. But once you take money against that equity, which is what the banks would love to give you because that's
Mm.
the best, most secure loan. I wouldn't. The only one exception I would make, and we didn't have to do it, but the only one exception I would make is if you're adding value to your house. For example,
Oh,
if you're
right.
doing an extension that is going to increase the value of your house, or if you're some major plumbing that is going to increase the value of your home, that would be worth considering because you're not taking value, you're taking money out, but you're adding value to your house. So
Anyway,
that might be one exception. But generally speaking, to me, that's an absolutely a red line that you should never cross. My
fantastic.
goodness, time
Thank you.
flies.
That's awesome. I hope our listeners benefited greatly
I hope
from your experience and whatever we talked about. I got to end with to say that yes, it's hard and living paycheck to paycheck is really really difficult. I've done it, but if with great discipline and planning, you can break through that paycheck to
absolutely,
paycheck. So
absolutely,
100%. So
for sure.
thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Please
Well,
keep
send
your
us your questions.
emails.
Anything else you haven't covered, you want to send us some questions, please email us. Email is right here on the screen, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you so much. Take
Yeah.
care.
Bye.
Bye.